Hello to all you guys out there on YouTube land. Yes, it's DR. I'm doing another vlog. Thought I'd do a vlog, let you know what's going on in this mind. Actually, this is a weird video. I want to make a video about a video that I was going to make and potentially am going to make at some period in time. Now, I did the unthinkable. I watched the Sargon of Akkad video. Yes, I did. Conveniently titled, Why Black People Commit More Crimes. And I might put a link in the doobly-doo bar down there. You can easily find it by typing why black people commit more crimes and look on Sargon of Akkad's channel, and it's there. He conveniently uses a picture of a young kid with a pistol to reinforce his point. And there are some things that I thought, okay, yeah, he has a point. There are some things that made me go, oh dear, this is where we're heading. And you can kind of imagine what Sargon does. Sargon does what a lot of people seem to do. They kind of cite research, they cite paper, and then go end the video in a totally weird and wonderful way. So the crux of the video was, he looked at crime figures. Now, one of the things I like to say with crime figures is people always use them as a mechanism to talk about people committing more crimes. As you guys are probably already aware, there's a difference between a reported crime and an unreported crime. There's some research that's been done. As I said, might make a video about this, I might not. But while I was looking into this, there's research been done about the difference between unreported and reported crimes. The fact that most unreported crimes actually tend to be white-collar crime. Most reported crime tend to be black collar crimes, working class crimes, violent crimes, that type. So if someone has a propensity to commit more violent crime, then they will be more likely to be reported. You're more likely to report someone who burgles your house and punches you than someone who rips you off and commits fraud. That's the and also the impact of crime. Now I understand violent crime is terrible. Someone might say a burglary in one house is different from wide-scale fraud committed by one individual. So you also have to think the impact of the crime across. But Sargon obviously uses these figures to talk about the fact there is a propensity for crime. He confuses the reporting and catching, apprehension of a criminal as a likelihood of someone to commit more crimes. I think there's a difference. I think if you're talking about likelihood, you're talking about intention, and behavior is a mechanism to measure intention, but it doesn't answer the whole story. So I'm one of those people that I like to be quite clear in terms of what are we talking about. If we're talking about reported crimes, then maybe you got a point. But if we're talking about the propensity to commit crimes, how then do you measure people who you haven't caught? How do you do that? And he doesn't kind of talk about this because obviously that doesn't really fit the narrative that Sargon is trying to approach. He then looks at the idea of poverty as a main driver. And this is something I've read a book by Nick Davis actually that talks about poverty in the UK and the impact of this. Actually, funny enough, a lot of the anecdotal stories used by Nick Davis report to people who are of Caucasian origin. But hey, I haven't put any support in the bit, so we'll just kind of keep running. Anyway, Sargon, my main kind of issue with Sargon's video, and a lot of videos I see like this, is that he then comes up with a conclusion. And his conclusion is basically work harder. He talks about, poverty is the main driver of it. So the way to get out of it, if you are black, is to work harder. He also talks about having a nuclear family without talking about the impact of the recorded crime figures, the fact that if it's males who are recorded as crime, this crime will eventually end up with people being incarcerated, which then shatters the nuclear family. But he doesn't talk about that because he just says it's about you maintaining the nuclear family. And essentially what I got from it was just work harder. It's your fault. It's not the fault of anyone. It's not a fault of any historical situation that's put you in this situation. It's your fault. and, work your way out of it. Now, some parts of me agree with that. Some parts of me think, you know what, he's got a point. Work your way out of it. Just get off your backside, and and it's good for someone like Sargon. And I've watched a lot of his videos. I've seen a lot of his opinions, and it's good for someone like Sargon to say that. I mean, part of me thinks, okay, I just get a bit stuck in my craw when people do that. I don't know, maybe it's a psychological thing. The other part of me thinks, I think about the NFL when I think about this, because, so bootstraps, just get off your bootstraps and work harder, work harder, be a success. So I think about the NFL. If you look at the American population, you can imagine that the NFL is disproportionately, populated by people of African American descent. So let's look at the Americans. So up until about 1936, and I appreciate this is a kind of a stream of consciousness, so I might be inaccurate to some degree, but up until about 1936, there were 0 people of ethnicity, black people, in the NFL. I might be wrong. I think I might be wrong with my figures by a couple of years, but there were none. Up until about the 1960s, black people were portioned in certain positions, and especially not in quarterbacks, because they weren't deemed smart enough. And I mean, that stigma still runs today. You had a black quarterback in the combine turn around and say, actually, I'm not going to do any running because people have come out and said you should be a wide receiver, you should be a skill position player. I haven't said that about anyone else in that position who potentially be from some other race. I'm not saying it's down to ethnicity, but there is a label called athletic quarterback that seems to be attached to a certain category, demographic of NFL quarterback. So, anyway, the NFL. You could pretty much say they're disproportionately one colour. But up until the movement of the Rooney Rule, there wasn't any movement on this. There wasn't any movement towards having more representation of African Americans within coaching staffs. You tend to find that they're running back coaches, but not head coaches. Now, the Rooney Rule came out, there was a spike. Why? I mean, people have said to me, what do I think about the Rooney Rule? Do I think, because this is an example of legislation of types, and I thought, from my perspective, I can understand why people, and for those who don't know, the Rooney Rule is where when you have a head coaching job, you have to interview at least 2 people from an ethnic minority. It doesn't have to be black, but from an ethnic minority, or a minority of sorts. So my initial thoughts in terms, thinking about Sargon, why would you have that? Why would you need that? Well, if you're in a situation where historically you've never had the opportunity to go for these roles and these jobs, this gives you that opportunity to go for a head coaching job. And maybe you've never gone through the interview process, so that gives you an automatic disadvantage to someone who has gone through the interview process. So you'd automatically think, I would support it. And actually I do. I think as a concept, you know what? It was really good. It forced NFL owners to interview black coaches, or minority coaches, let's just be fair, minority coaches for NFL positions. And there was an upspike in the amount of NFL head coaches who were from minorities. Now, funny enough, if you look at kind of research around the hiring of ethnic minorities and women in CEO positions, what you tend to find is most of the time when these organisations hire a woman or a minority, it's when the organisation is in trouble. If everything's successful, what they tend to do is hire like for like. So in comes a person who's male and Caucasian of a tendency, because that was the person who was there before. So more of the status quo, keep it going. If the organisation is in trouble, a bit like PepsiCo was, in comes a woman or a member of a minority. Now, the challenge you have with that is if the organisation's in trouble, then it's quite hard to fix that. It takes a lot of effort. If the organisation's on a status quo, it's easier to maintain the status quo. hypothetically speaking. So let's take that to the NFL. So what happened? Loads more coaches got the opportunity in struggling franchises where things were going wrong, and they then copped the flack of it. So now what you have at the moment with the Rooney Rule is almost a backlash against the Rooney Rule. So people are going out, and the Raiders were a prime example, they're going out interviewing people when they had the full intention of getting the status quo, i.e. Mr. Gruden. So you might say, well, Drew. So you might say, well, Jewel, what does this mean? What does this mean? Are you agreeing with Sargon? Are you disagreeing with Sargon? Well, actually, I'm just making an obvious statement that Sargon had a very simplistic argument to it. To some degree, it is about people working harder. But actually, I think it's pretty hard to do what some of these people do. It's underestimating what they're doing. And create a nuclear family, well, that would be great if they had the same opportunities to do. But as he already established in his video, they don't. Therefore, they're already funneled down a path which would lead to the breakdown of the nuclear family. So I think Sargon's answer is a bit simplistic. Also, it came across a bit preachy, and I make that as an observation. It came off like he was preaching to people, having very limited experience about those people's experience. I said experience a lot, but end of the day, I think making a statement without seeming to understand the issue, without seeming to talk to people who are going through it, seems a bit, I don't know, it's a preachy. It seems a bit like sitting on high going, I've read some data, this is my opinion. Okay. And this is my opinion. And hardly anyone's going to watch it, I know, but you know what? I just thought I'd put it out there. I might make more of a formal video. This is very vloggy, with a couple of edits because my phone's low on storage, so I had to record this in a couple of hits. But I hope you kind of see my intention. I mean, watch the video, see what you think. I mean, I'll see, as I said, I'll see if I can put a doobly-doo in a doobly-da, and then we can go from there. Like, share, subscribe, all those lovely things. I want to know your opinion on this. Do you agree with me? Do you think people tend to, and I use Sargon as an example, he's just an example of the kind of message that I seem to hear quite a lot. Just pull yourself out of the bootstraps, nuclear family, yada yada. And it's like, it's too simplistic without exploring the real drivers behind these things, and without appreciating the fact there is a cultural stigma attached to these things. Now, I could talk about this until I'm blue in the face, but I don't have the time, and I'm going to have to edit this on my phone. So I'm going to keep this short. This is DR saying, peace out and have a safe journey wherever you're heading.